do mental health programs which are currently available translate that to fairly diverse population of the state?
Look, we need to have funded transcultural mental health networks. We are one of the few states in Australia that doesn't have a government-funded transcultural mental health network. I can give you any number of people who speak all of these languages, who are qualified psychologists, qualified counselors, qualified social workers, but government refuses to fund transcultural mental health networks. They will provide what they call transcultural mental health networks, but give it to a mainstream agency to provide that service with people who are not from that lived experience of that culture. That's just inappropriate. You cannot have that. So what are the issues, for example, for, let's say it's a Muslim family? What are the issues around dealing? Who do you talk to? Do you talk to the husband? Do you talk to the wife? All of those things are really difficult exercises to go through. So we've argued for a long time that they need to have that. We've argued that we need to have significant transcultural mental health networks for our international students. Why do I say that? In the last 8 years, I've transported the bodies of 10 Indian boys back home. 10 Indian boys have either committed suicide or killed someone here. And I just don't want to do that anymore. Because there is no other service that will do that. I've had to go and arrange the flights to make sure that they get to somewhere close to their home. And then, you do the awful things like arrange to make sure that a refrigerated truck picks up the body at Delhi airport to take it out to somewhere in one of the villages there. That's just something that we should not be doing to anyone. Our international students are treated very, very poorly. We see them as a cash cow. We see that they bring in $15 or $18 billion a year, but we give them nothing in exchange for that. So we need to address their pastoral care. At one stage, Dev, going back some years ago, I had 8 Indian and South Asian boys on suicide watch in WA because I had to make sure that they weren't going to commit suicide. There were such things as people who had worked part-time, saved up enough money to send home to their mum and dad so that their sisters could get married. And they had gone one night to the casino and blown the lot. It's not a place that they would have had any access to back home. Here they've thought about it and gone to the casino and blown the lot. And now I'm concerned that they're going to commit suicide. So I've got to put them on suicide watch rather than, them having a really fulfilling experience of being here. They've had to go through that. Yeah. So that's part of it. I'm responsible for introducing and getting passed through Parliament the toughest racial vilification legislation in Australia. I worked with Jeff Gallup very closely. We got the criminal code amended so that we have very, very tough legislation in WA. One thing I can't get is religious vilification legislation. And one of the problems I see with that is that in the last 30 years, probably the people who have been most vilified on any basis have been the people from the Islamic community. Yet there is no legislation to prevent them being vilified because we don't have religious vilification legislation. We only have racial vilification legislation.
And there's a wide, conversations we had on these multiple sectors, from students to religious and racial vilification, what you have done. Coming to a bit more on the family well-being and financial well-being sector, where you are joining as the chief executive in one of the organizations. What's your view of that sector, where it is going, and what's the larger purpose towards the community?
A lot of what the Spiers Centre does is very much in keeping with my thinking and my reasoning. They are not a provider of It's that classic parable that's always spoken about. You can give a person a fish, and that person will have a meal for that one time.
Yeah.
You teach them how to fish, and they will be set up for life. And that's the philosophy that they're using at the Spiers Center, where they are trying to empower people, in addition to providing some emergency relief, which, the people who need it are desperate and need that. They're also providing financial counseling.
Yeah.
So they've got the financial counseling to teach people about how to manage their money. Financial counseling, financial literacy is not something we do well in Australia. We don't teach it at schools, and we have a real problem there.